Writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack. Welcome back to Right Pack Radio. This is your host, David Allen Lucas, author of science fiction and crime drama, and president of St. Louis Writers Guild. And with me today is...
co-host Kathleen Kayembe, author of paranormal romance under the pen name Kaseka and Vita.
Melanie Claney, author of sci-fi, fantasy, and nonfiction.
And science.
I said nonfiction.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's science nonfiction.
Yeah.
This is an important distinction.
Of course,
Matthew McGraw.
I've written articles, too. They're not sciencey.
Okay.
I'm Matthew McGraw. I'm an amateur short story writer, and I'm also pilot of a book called Patrick the Spider.
You're
I
the
just made
pilot?
up that term right
You're
now.
the pilot of
You're
the
the
book?
pilot.
Yeah, whatever. I'm the pilot.
What am I then?
I'm sticking with it.
What am I then? If you're the pilot and I'm the illustrator, does that make
Bombardier.
me... I'm the bombardier. I'll be the bombardier, that's
So,
alright.
is Patrick the Spider now going to be a flying spider?
You didn't know it was a war book, but it is now.
Yeah, I guess so.
Maybe in a later book, Patrick the Spider learns to fly.
He can learn it from the jumping spider.
Makes a parachute.
Actually, I just saw a great article of flying spiders. They're not real. It was a total fake thing for, April
Onion?
Fools.
Yeah,
Some of the
that was
young
hilarious.
fly. They let out like the little spinneret
Yeah,
and just
the parachute.
parachute
Okay.
away.
He could take
Oh, are
out
we
a
getting-
flying squirrel for someone.
Anyway,
By the way, my name is Jennifer Stolzer, and I'm an illustrator. I also write fantasy books, and somehow got forgotten in this tangent we all went on about flying spiders.
you're not the only one forgotten.
You're
No.
cool.
Yeah,
We were going to
We
continue.
can commiserate together.
go for it.
I'm Brad R. Cook. I wrote The Iron Horseman, which is a YA steampunk novel, and by the time this airs, you will be able to go find stuff about Iron Zulu, its sequel coming out this fall. Yeah, go check that out.
Great.
Including the awesome art drawn by the lady sitting next to me who just spoke a second ago.
What
known
up?
as Jennifer Stolzer. And today we are going to discuss
Bombardier.
one of the newer, I'd say newer because it's been around for a while, the newer aspects of writing, and that is the storytelling of games.
Yeah, and when we say a while, we do mean like 30 years.
Yeah, the last 30 years. And what I'm going to say with that though is, you see, let's go ahead and let's go back in time 30 years. Someone give me Doctor Who. Okay, music. Here's 30 years ago. The best way you could do a game of storytelling was text on your computer. You played it by yourself. Some of you may remember the game of
Quark?
Oregon Trail would eventually combine graphics with the text.
Where in the world was Carmen Sandiego?
Where in the world is
You're
Carmen
starting
Sandiego?
way too late in the game.
Oh, no.
Text adventures are like way before then.
Yeah.
Yes. But I just threw a dart to throw it out there.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I think
Choose
Quark's
your
probably the
adventure.
closest to the straight text gaming that we were talking about.
When did Choose Your Own Adventure start, and does that count?
The 80s.
That's a good question.
I
If it
think it's
counts.
books.
Yeah, it started with books.
Yeah, I was going to venture to say that we're not just talking about games, we're talking about interactive storytelling.
Exactly. Which is where I was going to go with this. So, since you said it already, what is interactive storytelling?
Well, back in the day, it used to mean that you had to click onto another page of text and read that text, or maybe get a weird 8-bit graphic running across
Wait
the
a minute,
screen.
you need to define it a little
However,
bit.
now it's completely different. I mean,
You never
wanna
defined
go
the term here.
interactive. I'm not going to define interactive. They know what interactive means.
Interactive storytelling would be a story in which the reader is an active participant.
Right.
So that includes both
But that's not
video
the
games. Well, that's what the
Choose Your Own
interactive
Adventure
portion.
is kind of an interactive.
No, you're
but
interactive. You're interactive because you get to choose what you do next.
Maybe.
It's all pre-written, but the story, how you die is determined by what page you
See, I
turn
would say
to.
now we have a much more immersive, interactive
Absolutely, but interactive, I mean, if
1000%.
you want to think about it, interactive storytelling, everyone does that when we were little kids and we pick up our toys and we say, this one's name's Bill and this one's name's Jane, and now they're going on an adventure.
Yes.
They weren't Bill and Jane a minute ago, but the little kid decided to tell an interactive story that way, and that's kind of where it all starts.
That's why when you play house or play go on an adventure, you're playing. You're telling a story that you were part of.
Make believe.
Yes.
So in this case here, make believe has now been boxed,
Very well guided.
very well guided. Okay, I like that better because I was not starting to like where I was going for word boxed.
Codified.
So, and I'm going to pause this for just a second and let our listeners know we've been talking. If you remember back, I think we mentioned this on a Right Back Radio episode. Probably could be heard in December of 2014. That we were talking about a game company that helps authors or works with authors' books. So we will be talking with them again soon. So this is actually kind of a tie-up, unintentional. Mm-hmm. So what is the modern-day storytelling of games? Or how does it work? How does it help improve, either by play or by writing form, improve your storytelling? Yes.
I'm going to have to defer to Jen in a lot of ways because I know she has experience with making mobile games.
Yeah, they weren't very story heavy, but
But
I did have a game where you slapped a bunch of old men with a glove.
But see, there's an aspect of gaming that I don't understand. I love games with good stories, though. I can't play video games. Jen plays games for me. Another friend plays games for me, and I get to experience the
I'm going to
plot
correct
value.
you on this. You've been playing a lot of video games.
I play phone games.
Those count.
They give me such joy, and I will gush about them for years.
And so many of them, you've come to me and told me the story, because the story is what compelled you to play the game.
This is true.
Well, I would throw out some of your classic long-form video games
Long form.
that go like
Your marathon
100
video
hours or
games.
so.
Or even more.
You know, my favorite being KOTOR, which is now a few years old, which is Knights of the Old Republic, and is an awesome game that was the first of the massively interactive and deep storytelling Star Wars games, and spawned a sequel and then a giant, massively online world. So,
Which I've played on that online
yes.
world.
But, you know, in that, you are following one story. You're still following that story for like 40 hours.
Oh, yeah. At least.
So, well, on KOTOR. And the later ones, you actually will go a bit longer. But yeah, so that's, you know, that's one way. Mass Effect's another one.
Same company, too.
Same company.
BioWare.
We love the BioWare.
There's also Star Trek Online, which also does the same thing.
Well, any of these.
Even though it has certain
MMOs.
episodes.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at WoW or any of this, which is World of Warcraft for anybody who needs to now get punched in the face.
And also those type of games, let me go back in time. A fun one, since you mentioned one, KOTOR is the old version. I know, Brad, you'll remember Might and Magic.
Oh, yeah.
Which was an entire series of games.
Final Fantasy.
Fantasy, yeah.
And all of those were
Why they put the
inspired.
final in front, we don't know.
Well, they put the final in front for drama.
Yes.
And to be fair, nearly all of those games take place in their own little tiny pocket universe, so it might be the Final Fantasy for each of those places.
Right.
As you murder the big bad. Tangent aside, all of those games were inspired by possibly the most influential of interactive games, which would be Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
I just wrote that down. I write notes as we talk.
Which is on a sidebar I still play.
If anyone has
Nothing wrong
RPG'd,
with
then
that.
you know exactly. If you're a DM, then why aren't you a writer?
Pause. RPG.
You kind of have to be.
Pause. RPG, role-playing game. DM is Dungeon Master. That's used in Dungeons and Dragons, the role-playing game system, to title. That's the title you give to, say, the narrator. In role-playing games, you have one narrator who's in charge of, the plot and the characters that the players who are playing the game and get to make their own choices do not control. So, DM is Dungeon Master for Dungeons & Dragons, GM or Game Masters for other systems.
Right.
Yes.
Now you may go.
How the functionality works there as far as the interactivity goes is it's like a weird mix of like being a regular writer, and that's kind of the DM, and having like putting on a stage play. Because basically, like, you've got the DM, he's got like the world, and he's got a general idea of where he wants the story to go. It's probably not going to go there, but he has an idea.
It's putting on a stage play with improv actors.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
here's the problem. You're not giving them scripts. So it always changes.
Yeah.
They're
The
always just
DM's
deciding.
plan only lasts as long until the dice roll,
Yes.
and then everything changes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the fun thing about role-playing. However, all you DMs out there should be storytellers, because I learned how to plot and characterize and do all kinds of fun stuff.
And problem
all
solve.
from yes, and problem solving, plot
On
hole
your feet?
fixing, all that.
There's
all
a
from
lot of-
DMing.
Well, usually you're sitting.
There's a lot of planning and plotting on the fly that goes on as a GM.
Oh, yes.
And it takes a good storyteller to keep the story together and to steer the players in the direction you want them to go without manipulating them.
Oh no, you're manipulating them.
Without manipulating them in a heavy-handed way that makes
Okay.
it not fun to play.
Also, too, along with that, you've got, sorry, I just got distracted. This is also the chance, if you have ever been GM, DM, to whatever you pick, whatever game you play,
If you've ever mastered.
you also learn to become the master of your audience. Because your players are your audience. Even though it's a tight little group, you learn to adjust the story to their level of play.
And you can tell if they're getting bored by your descriptions, so you cut that out. You can tell...
Or if you made your plot too damn complicated, which I have a habit of doing.
So then you have to cut stuff out. Like, you can tell when you're doing too much or too little.
Oh, here's another thing that's really good at. In Star Trek, and a lot of things are like this. You get to, like, in real life television, whatever. You're like, why didn't they just do this? Why did the person have to kill themselves? Why didn't they, send in the...
Clones.
Yes, or whatever. But
Clowns.
I like to put it in the clones. Go ahead.
Clones from Dr. Evil's... yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, go on.
But anyway, the point is, when all your players are there, and they come up with a situation where they're supposed to go in and kill themselves, it's like, why am I going to kill myself? Let's just send in this thing and let them die.
I don't know who was next. Go for it.
That's a situation where the players break the game, and there's always a player like that who thinks so outside the box that this, for example, a dragon that you have created to take the entire game session to beat is beaten in one move by the guy who's playing someone else's character because he does not think the way that person thinks and just ends it, and the GM wants to hurt you all.
Or the dice just happens to roll that way.
I was going to say, usually they play a mage or a thief.
He was playing his girlfriend's mage character and created a wall above the dragon in
dropped it.
thin air.
Yeah.
It died.
Well,
GM
the
was like,
DM
"What?"
should have thought of that.
Sorry, go
Or should
on.
have banned wizards.
Oh, it was great.
Well, to get us back on topic,
Yes.
it's interesting. We've got all these stories. So we're talking about an exceptionally interactive storytelling experience. And we can narrow it down to we're going to call it a minusculely interactive storytelling experience, which would be something like a book or a movie, where you're told what the story is, and your only interaction is whether or not you want to cry.
Or whether you put it down.
Or whether you put it down, whether you want to continue experiencing the story.
Or if you want to skip a chapter, go.
Yeah.
I can do that.
The
Never skipped a chapter in a book in my life. Sorry.
Me
No, I
either,
never
by the
did
way.
either. Grapes of Wrath. Anyway, moving on.
So there's a spectrum of interaction between things.
There is, and fitting along, being able to anticipate changes that could be made by your user are a big part of that. When you want to tell a story that's very straightforward, and you write a book about it, because that's the story. But there are examples of game situations. I'm gonna just venture anything made by David Cage. That is that's an interactive movie, but it's only interactive because you have button prompts that you have to press on time, but really you're being railroaded into the story. And it makes, while it might tell a good story, it does not make a good game. It's interesting how that interactive spectrum can play on these different media.
Actually, in gaming, they tend to call that storytelling on rails. Because the story is just going along like a roller coaster, and it's not going to deviate, even though your button pressing may send it through a loop or something like that.
Yeah,
Right.
it's either determines your quote unquote score at the end. Something like an interactive novel, you might be able to fail, like die. Like you die if you don't do this puzzle properly. But when you do the puzzle properly, you'll be brought onto the next plot point, and you have no influence over where the plot is going. It's just how well you advance through it. And some of those are very rewarding. Other ones are not. I'm not a fan of David Cage, so those.
Well, famously done in the Choose Your Own Adventure novel, where you flip to the page and you die.
Yeah.
And so then you flip back to the page you just came from, and you choose the other side, and you keep reading the story.
So does some element of choice for the gamer need to be included in an interactive story, or is it just they have to do something like tournament?
The gamer has to be anticipated. If you're going to railroad a gamer, unless you're going to do something really cool, like you have a passion for a certain kind of puzzle solving or whatever, or you have a really cool gimmick that you think would work well as a game, perhaps you should think about writing a book. Not that I'm going to discourage anyone from creating anything, because I want people to create stuff. But the best games are ones that anticipate the user and include them in the story in a way that makes them feel meaningful. Like, you create your own avatar, you go into, well, we'll use Mass Effect as an example. You create your avatar, you create your shepherd, you go into the story, and Mass Effect does a great job of taking the choices that you make and making them count for something.
Yep.
You know, they carry over to the next game in the adventure, and it'll determine whether or not this character is here to help you or kill you, or whether or not these people are your allies or your enemies. It does kind of come to a point at the end when they ran out of time and money, but the potential was there, and for the most part, you know, the first two games and 99% of the last game were an excellent example of anticipating your user, but also telling an awesome story.
And I'd argue, I'm going to discourage people from creating things, because I'd argue that without an element like that, there's no point, it's not really interactive. Like, if there was a game, let's say, where, you know, like, every 5 minutes they, like, told you, press A or something. You know, the quick time event kind of thing. Like, it's not really interactive, that's just kind of BS. There's no reason for it to be a game at that point, and that's absolutely correct.
Have you played Heavy Rain, perchance?
No.
Don't.
It really just means you can't put the controller down
Yeah.
So, like, you know,
in the cutscene.
that's not an interactive story anymore. So if you want a story to be interactive, there have to be choices. There has to be a chance of failure, and there has to be a chance of success, and there has to be options that mean things. Otherwise, you know, might as well be a movie, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Or it's just like a book for the characters.
Yeah.
I was thinking, actually, we're describing one type of game, but I was just thinking about the early, like Super Mario Brothers, whatever, where
Mario wasn't so much a story as it was a scenario and an excuse to jump on mushrooms.
Right, but point is,
The princess is in another castle just is not compelling.
No, but
There's kind of a story to it.
the point is, you could put your story on rails. Like, let's say it's a first-person shooter type game. You're on a military mission, there is a story, but the story, at least the main story, maybe you get little choices, but the main story is the main story. And the goal of the player is to shoot up the bad guys to achieve each mission, then they're assigned a new mission. That's a different type of...
I would venture that that's not an interactive story. That's an activity that has a plot in it for whatever reason.
Well, sorry, real quick. Take a look at those games like you're talking about. Real quick, just throw out Metroid. It's a side-scrolling platformer basically from the 80s, and yes, it's an interactive game in the sense that I'm playing these levels, and if I survive them, I'm getting closer to the end or whatever. But the reality is, nothing I do affects the storyline it's telling me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even one of my favorite games, XCOM, was that way. I'm going to, Kathleen, you had your hand up, and then I'm going to knock us off the rails a bit.
Okay.
Because I want to get us back to something. Go ahead.
Sorry, I lost my thing for a moment.
No problem. Get your thing back.
Get your thing back.
I think gaming, the games that I enjoy playing, a lot of them are puzzle games, point-and-click puzzle adventures, and they have interesting, but, they become predictable if you play like 50 bajillion of the same company plots, and there is only one way to complete the game. You have to solve the puzzles so that the cutscenes happen and stuff. Mm-hmm. But those games are still very fun for me, even though they're interactive in a way that means my choices do not affect the outcome. Does that differ from... That differs from some of the ones we've been talking about, like Mass Effect. Mm-hmm.
And even in Mass Effect, a lot of them had small changes but the general story was.
But your choices in Mass Effect do affect the outcome. Like, they affect the choices you're given later. There is a ripple. And so in games like the Big Fish or the G5 game developer puzzle adventures that I play, there's the Wicked Queen who you're trying to defeat, and it turns out she is a sob story, so you get to hear that as you go through the game. But in the end, the puzzles that I do have only one way to complete them, and the game has only one way to go when I complete puzzles. So what I do doesn't actually affect the outcome as far as changing it. It just gets me closer to the inevitable end.
I'll let you answer that. I really do want to swing us back away from something.
I think you bring up a very good point, and the genre of game you're describing is the adventure game. Mm-hmm. Adventure games are very popular, and I apologize for not considering them earlier in interactive game talks, since I do love them myself. The draw of those is, number one, it's fun to solve puzzles, but also you go in knowing you're going to be told a cool story. So it's a form. I wonder if you would pull it out of the interactive. It's like it's not an interactive story so much as it is a good story with puzzles in it.
Here's the thing, though. The interactiveness isn't in the storytelling. The interactiveness comes from the puzzles. Mm-hmm. Because it's not like a point and click where I'm just jumping a platform to get to the next platform. I have to figure something out. I might have to go do research outside the game just so that I can know what math problem to solve once I get there. Mm-hmm. Or something along those lines. So I would almost say that the adventure game is incredibly interactive because of the puzzle part of it.
I have a question then. Are we talking, if we're doing storytelling in games, we are talking exclusively today then about interactive storytelling, not interactive in that I complete a puzzle, but interactive in that my choices affect the story?
That was kind of my understanding, the idea that a story can have a different effect for different people.
All right.
It doesn't mean that adventure games and visual novels and all of those things are invalid forms of storytelling.
We're just not.
They're very good forms of storytelling. I would say that the story in those situations aren't the interactive part.
All right.
And just like, a great game like Myst. Myst was a classic adventure game. And I would say that story was very small because the emphasis was on puzzles, but it was still very interesting. Yet you showed up to do the puzzles, and you explored the story as you went. The the priority is just a little bit different as opposed to a game like Mass Effect or a Dungeons and Dragons game where you show up to influence the story.
All right.
So, probably throwing all games together, let me just... I'm changing our course a little bit back to the storytelling of games. And what I mean by that is how does the games, Brad, you mentioned if you're GM or DM, why you're not a storyteller, how does participating, either running a game, creating a game, or being a player in a game affect the way you, as a writer, plot or write, if you're a pantser, your stories? And Jen, I'm kind of throwing open the door there to Twine as well, which I know you're now my local expert on.
I have a more local expert, but I am the one that's present.
Can we explain what that is just real quick? Because I don't know
Twine,
what it is.
Please.
Yes.
Twine is a fantastic free storytelling resource.
Ooh, it's free.
It is free. It's www.twinery.org. And it's a game. It's basically a game engine, but it's a game engine for text adventures. And I learned about it through the St. Louis game. Oh my goodness, STL. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to plug you. I'm trying so hard to plug him.
Plug it online.
Yeah, we'll plug it online. But it's the idea is that it's set up sort of like you would see a conspiracy theorist would put up an index card and then trace where that index card's thought process goes with yarn onto other index cards to branch around all over the place.
Oh, it's a branching dialogue.
So it's branching game design. So you write up a scenario like, I went to the store today. And then you can block out as many things you do with the stories you want, and then spawn those off into their own little index card posts on this online program. You can download it too. But then you can explore each of those different ideas. I go to the store. Do I buy milk? Do I hold the place up with a gun? Do I level it with a bulldozer? Like these
that
are
escalated quickly.
yeah. So, well, those are three very different stories to tell. And with Twine, and with anything, you could do that. I do this with Post-it notes on my closet door. You can take each of those stories and follow them to their logical conclusion if you want to. And when you save it out, you then give it to other people who can explore your going to the store scenario in their own way by clicking different links, and they get to discover your story in an interactive way.
So it's basically a
choose
make your own
adventure
Yes.
yeah.
engine
It is indeed.
that
Or a
you don't have to
visual
write
novel.
code for.
Exactly. It's very easy to use. And so I wanted to share it with all of my friends because it's a great way. It's very similar to how I plot. I have yet to use it to plot a story because I'm not working on a new project right now. The one I have is pretty well plotted to start with, but I hope to use it in the future for
I'm
different
actually
ways to
starting
go.
to use it now.
Oh, cool! I'm glad to hear it. But it's great fun. I mean, and there are venues like forums and stuff where you can actually host and sometimes even sell the games you make in Twine.
Well, here's a question, since we're talking about interactive storytelling, and this is, something that is entirely devoid of a storyteller beyond the user who's doing it, but The Sims. You create your own story, you create your own house, you create your own adventure, you do what you want, you get the job you want, you hang out with the friends you want, you go take a poop when you want, lock them up and set the place on fire or something, I don't know, but whatever you want to do, that's a form of interactivity. And I think it's almost the most interactivity that you can have, removing completely the idea of a storyteller. Because then it's the reader or the audience member who's entirely telling the story themselves.
And there's also now, I'm going to turn this over to you. There's also now platforms out there, like a way of calling it, like Second Life.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this one's still around or not. IMVU, which was instant message virtual something. But that was also, it was less interactive than Second Life. Second Life you can walk around. IMVU you had to click on pose balls. But still, that's once again, there's no storyteller, but your story is created by what you're doing.
Technically, you're the storyteller.
And who you run into.
Well, yeah, I was thinking this is kind of the big difference between like writing a book and being in one of these interactive scenarios. Is it's a lot less about you and your vision of what things are going to be. I'm going to pull in kind of a offbeat example here, which is like improv sketch comedy.
Okay.
It's another thing where there isn't an author. You just have a bunch of people, you have a small set of rules, and you just kind of let things happen based on one prompt. And there's no authorship, really, anywhere in there. There's nobody with a vision, there's nobody with a message that they wanted to get out, there's just a thing that happens. And even in, like, an RPG scenario, you have your DM, he has some ideas, but it's a lot less about him and his vision than, what those other players are going to bring in. And I guess with interactive storytelling, like even with a game especially, it's going to be a lot less about that person who's making the game and their vision of what it should be, and there's going to be a lot more of what the reader is going to want out of it. And so that's, I think, if you're doing interactive storytelling, that's what you want to do, leave room for them.
That's a good point.
I think that harkens back to what Jen said earlier about anticipating the user, anticipating the gamer, and setting things up for them and plotting for them. But I wanted to talk about, in these cases, we've all talked about games that we liked. But what makes a game's story compelling? I know Mass Effect, one reason I'm so attached to it is because I got to play a big part in determining the main character's decisions. And I got to learn a lot about different characters and enough to feel close to them, So it was like I was having the book experience, but in game form where my choices mattered. And that differs from how I feel about some other games, where I did, affect the story, but I'm not as into them. So what makes a game's story compelling?
I would say it's the exact same thing that makes any story compelling. good characters, an intriguing plot, some sort of twisting that happens to the story or something like that, great characters, deaths, something along these lines. It's the compelling stories are compelling stories for reasons. The same reason that's compelling in a novel, the same reason it's compelling in a movie, the same reason it's compelling in a video game. I don't think there's a difference. I think a compelling story will always be a compelling story.
What makes Mass Effect, and, this is the big Mass Effect, booster hour right now. What makes it so successful, like Kathleen was asking why it succeeded where other places did not. What made it so successful was that sense of uniqueness. You as the player, when you created your Shepard, I created Jen Shepard, and Jen Shepard went through the game, and I got the impression that she had an adventure that no one else had.
Yeah.
Her adventure was her own adventure, and you could go online or share it with another. I played this game with Kathleen, and when she made her decisions in her Shepard story, they were different than mine, and I got to see a different story unfold. Same plot beats, obviously, because it's all fitting in the realm, but she came from a different place. Her Shepard had a different backstory, and so she ran into different people. She had different relationships. Like, I didn't romance anybody because my Shepard was too busy saving the world for that. And Kathleen Shepard, hooked up with a girlfriend at the very beginning and stuck with her the entire time. As opposed to my friend Rachel online, who picked a new boyfriend every single game, even though it was the same Shepard. It was like, I dated him in the first game, so now I'm going to date this other guy. And then the last one, you pick which one you want again. It was a very different story for each of us, and our Shepards felt unique enough that if we put them all in the same place, that they would have conversations that wouldn't just be, I agree with you, or that's the same as I feel.
See, I had
that
a
character
similar
felt
experience
real because we helped shape it.
in KOTOR. Even though there's a less, same company, BioWare, and they'd obviously KOTOR's first, and they
learned.
perfected it by Mass Effect.
I'm not going to say perfect, but
Okay.
they got better.
Much better. But in KOTOR, even though it's a little bit on rails, and you only really got to choose the way your character looked, Revan, was always going to be Revan no matter what you did. However, I played that story 10 different times all the way through. 10 different ways. Sometimes I was good, sometimes I was evil. Sometimes I hooked up with Bastila, sometimes I hooked up with the guitar chick. Sometimes I was, literally just yelling at everyone to get away from me, and then at the end you kill them all. It's
the freedom of choice.
Exactly. But I agree. This is what makes it interactive. This is what's compelling about it. This is what brings you back. And to be honest, it's what gives you that experience that you both were talking about. A unique user experience.
And
it's almost like the story's now tailored to you specifically.
Exactly.
It's like the comic books in big.
That's what made it feel more, I would say, akin to a D&D campaign than a point-and-click adventure game. While, the point-and-click adventure game, very fun, there was a set path that we had to follow, but it's the same way that a Dungeons & Dragons game would be like, well, we know we're going to go to this dungeon, and we know we're going to run into this character, and we know we're going to beat this dragon. But what happens in the middle, you can have some control over that, and that's what kind of sets it apart.
One of the things I haven't heard, and I'm going to throw it out there just to add to it, is also the stakes of a game. What's at stake? Just like in a story, what's at stake? To quote from... actually, I'm not quoting from anybody, I'm paraphrasing, because it's been a long time ago, but P.D. James, the queen of crime, who has recently passed away, she would always say, nobody cares so much if Aunt Judith, that's not the name of the character, Aunt Judith's pearls go missing. But you have Aunt Judith's pearls go missing, and then she ends up dead with her face down in the soup. Now you got your readers caring. And same thing with games. There's always a stake to that game.
Yes.
How important is that stake to you as a player? So that becomes a question mark. I think him, then you.
Well, I'm going to be a contrarian here
No, don't
and
do
run.
that yet. Don't yet.
Don't be a contrarian yet.
Okay, well, hang on. You go
I'll
first, and then I'll be contrary.
About stakes. One of the things that Mass Effect did well, and that I have heard David Weber does well in his Honor Harrington series,
I love you. You just mentioned one of my favorite sci-fi. Just go ahead.
is he... the story starts small. Mass Effect 1 is about one person on a ship with, 7, 9 different people. And they have a job to do. And it seems like it's a one-off. But Mass Effect 2 and the end of Mass Effect 1 shows that was part of a larger picture, and the lens gets wider and wider. So that by the time you get to the universe is in peril, you care about all these people because you've met representatives from each of these different places, and you care about them. I hear David Weber's series also does that. You start off on a ship with one, group of people, and, the lens goes out and out and out and out, and you find out this is this huge intergalactic war.
You get the
And what you
Napoleonic
can't see is how hard the audience can't see is how hard I'm nodding my head. Yes.
But that's how they make the stakes worth something to the user, to the viewer, to the player.
If you start out with the whirlwind, where do you go from there?
More,
Well,
you have to
that's
care about
Hitchhiker's
somebody
Guide to
in
the
the world.
Galaxy.
You have to care about the people in that world in order to, really feel the stakes if they're going to die.
Well, I have an example, a very minor example of a story that occurred in a game that doesn't have any memorable characters, didn't provide any stakes either. And that's because it's Grand Theft Auto Online. Here's the story that happened.
Okay.
So there's online servers, and normally what people do is they run around shooting each other, stealing cars, blah, 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 and whatever.
Almost like Second Life.
That's what I thought the entire game
Yeah.
was. I didn't know there was a plot.
I
In
think there is one, but
in the console versions, yes, there is a plot that you follow.
All right.
not on the servers, though.
Not in the online version.
But anyway, one day, there was a guy who went on there, and, he was on a server, and the people were doing all the usual stuff. And he just got a bicycle, and he just didn't feel like doing anything else that day, so he got on the bicycle and just started riding it around the mountain tracks, just very leisurely, not doing anything special, not speeding, and he just, if somebody killed him, he just got back on a bike and started doing it again. And then eventually, one of the other people on there was like, oh, maybe I'll join him. And he started doing that. And eventually, there was a whole server full of people in Grand Theft Auto just riding bicycles around with each other in a fake environment.
Peloton? They Pelotoned in Grand Theft Auto.
Or rather, I was going to say, so this is a interactive version of the Forrest Gump run across the country. Okay.
Exactly. And it happened without any structure from the game makers. Actually, it happened in contravention of a structure the players themselves had created over time, where you just randomly murder people and steal cars and do all this stuff. So that was a story that was entirely audience created.
They did a Take Back the Night.
Yeah, it was audience created on both ends. They created the environment, and then they created the story that fought against it. And so that's something that can happen only in a video game.
That is a good way
Only in an interactive one. Very
to
interactive.
bring in this other question I had. As I was thinking about Grand Theft Auto in specific, because there's a feminist frequency series called Tropes versus Women in Video Games, and it talks about all the tropes that we so often see women used as, plot points, and in this case, background decoration. Sexy women titillate audience, kill hookers.
Woman is lamp.
Yes, woman is lamp, but woman is lamp you get points or money for killing.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
So Grand Theft Auto was one of those games that she talks about in the woman as background decoration video. But the point of that video series is that these are all tropes, many of which really need to be subverted because they're bad writing, they're lazy, and they're dangerous to women in a society like ours where domestic violence and violence against women is really a problem. So how do you subvert tropes like that? How do you keep an eye on what you're doing as you're writing for these games instead of just throwing things in to make sure that everyone can enjoy a game equally? Because I know my brother will enjoy Grand Theft Auto in a way that I cannot, because I will see all the women that look like me getting shot to death and treated like awful people. Like, how do you create a game that everyone can enjoy equally?
Let me jump for just a second. Just be careful here. We talked a while back about tropes versus cliches. And really what you're describing, even though you're using the word trope, almost falls to cliche.
It's both.
It is both. Tropes work because they work. They're expected, and you can play with them.
They're
Cliches,
easily recognizable things.
And what I guess I'm trying to be careful with this is the woman as background or whatever. There's other versions as well, not just the women thing. It's more a cliche. It should not be. That's just my That's just my
Semantics boy.
Semantics.
You
I
wanna
know.
go there?
What I'm trying to do is we've had other discussions where tropes have worked, and right now you're talking about how to suppress a trope. So, and I agree with everything you said up to that, because we've had that conversation. But I just want to make sure we're not contradicting something we said before as a group. That's all.
Want to go?
I think you're first.
The one thing though, you can't. There's two issues that I think are separate. One is objectionable content in an individual game, but the other is you said something that I'm not sure I agree with in principle. How do you make a game that everyone can enjoy playing? Answer, I don't think you should even try that. I think you should try to make games for everyone to enjoy to play. So, not saying that there are some games that aren't problematic, because there are. It's that we should strive to make sure that there are games that appeal to all segments of the audience, but don't try and make...
That's what I meant.
Yeah, but not try and make one game appeal to every segment of the audience, because that's how you get those applesauce salesmen.
That's how we get the Star Wars prequels.
You can spread your focus too far.
Angry Birds.
Yeah.
Angry Birds is violence
Let me
against birds
rephrase then.
and pigs.
How do you create a game that is not offensive to half the population?
That might be a better question.
How do you tell any story? You gotta make wise decisions. You put a feature in a game. Unfortunately, in an interactive environment, you can't stop humans from being awful people. I'm really sorry to break that to the listening public, but the fact is that in Grand Theft Auto Online, they may go around killing hookers for hours, or they might ride a bike. You never know what they're gonna do, and that's one way of making it. That's one of the side effects of having an interactive story.
Fully interactive.
Interesting side note to this. I think in Grand Theft Auto, I think this is true, that there aren't any kids in the game world.
You can't kill kids.
Exactly. Because if you put a kid in the game and it's capable, like it's possible to kill them, somebody is going to do it. And so that'll shoot your, whatever it is,
it
the
makes
ESRB
it adult
rating.
only.
Yeah.
It's way up.
M rating real quick.
The Grand Theft Auto 5 was adult only, I believe. And then they they released an edited version that was M so that they could sell it in stores. Unless I'm misinformed, I believe that it was originally released on PC or whatever as adult only, and you can still buy it that way. But on disc, it was M so that they could put it in GameStop.
Grand Theft Auto is one example of a game trend. I brought it up because it's a gross example that people know.
No argument there.
But if there is a mechanic built into the game, then it's hard for everyone to enjoy it if they see the problems with it.
Well, not... When you pick up a Grand Theft Auto game...
My example was Beyond Good and Evil.
Beyond Good and Evil is a fantastic game.
Good game.
Yes. Can you kill hookers in it?
There are no hookers in it.
What is the game mechanic? How do you earn money? How do you advance?
Photos.
You take
Explain
pictures.
further. Explain
You take
further.
pictures of animals. But Beyond Good and Evil is a different game from Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
When you're picking up Beyond Good and Evil, you know you're not going in to kill hookers. Beyond Good and Evil is technically at its heart, it's a platforming adventure. It's a platforming adventure in which we follow a protagonist. We play a woman named Jade, who lives on a planet full of half animal people.
Yes.
Whose uncle is a pig, and I really wish I could give him a huge hug, because he is my favorite.
And he has some very interesting...
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
He has a fart-powered jetpack.
Exactly. The fire-powered jetpack is awesome.
Yeah, his fart-powered jet boots.
Yes. Boots,
And she adventures to save her world through... she starts as just being a photographer and uncovers this deeper conspiracy, and it's a fun story. The interactive portion of that game is the driving and the platforming and the photo taking. Yeah. The story is pretty well laid out, but it's fun to adventure through, and it's great to use it as a scenario to get you to the next platforming, driving, photo taking section. To divert a little bit, I'm going to take us to Half-Life 2,
Another good one.
which is a fantastic
Yep.
interactive story. This story is also kind of on rails. You don't really have any influence over the story, but the interactive portion is that you end up feeling like the main character because he has no lines. You are just him. And yet at the same time, you can see how his Gordon Freeman, you can see how his interactions with his with the other characters in the game are kind of grow his character around you. But it feels like you're making friends with them because you have absolute control over Gordon the whole time. You're never yanked out of him and put in a cutscene.
Yeah, there's no press A repeatedly.
Exactly. It's you're always driving him. You can wave your crowbar around all the time. And it's a level of immersion that you never leave.
Okay.
And so I was thinking of other examples of ways to make an interactive story that kind of violated what I previously said about interactive stories. You have to influence the story. Beyond Good and Evil, Half-Life, Half-Life 2. I dare say the Halo franchise, because I love the Halo franchise, although that story is very much on rails and extremely purple. It's a very purple story.
Well, you know,
Lore
a
is
lot of
crazy.
video games, I mean, we could go on and on, but a lot of video games have that sense of you are interactive with the game and, you know, everything there, but the story that you're actually being told is kind of going on in the background. You know, there are a lot of, I mean, to be honest, almost every 80s platformer is like that.
But as you were saying, how do you make an interactive game that, for lack of, let's just use your example. How do you make an interactive game without being misogynistic? The answer is, if you,
Without building misogyny into the game.
two issues. I think they're separate. One, you give somebody a goal that, for instance, here's an example. Sorry, I don't play video games, so I don't remember the titles well. But the Assassin.
Assassin's Creed?
It could be.
Where you can get a cover of hookers?
No, but
No, you get a cover of monks.
No, there's the pirate one. In the pirate one,
Does he get a cover of hookers
you
as
get
a pirate?
hookers to cover him in
I
crowds.
didn't play
Yeah.
the pirate version.
Oh,
but
that's the one I've seen.
the issue with that is, for example, the assassin or the hitman. Hitman is what I'm thinking
Ah,
of.
yeah.
Hitman.
It's different.
Yeah.
Very different.
I'm thinking of Hitman. But Hitman...
I don't think he does a cover of hookers.
No.
No, he
But-
dresses up all the time.
The point is, Hitman, you can go around, I think you might be... Let's do a theoretical game, because I don't know if it's Hitman or not. But let's say you could go around and you could theoretically kill anybody, including little kids or hookers or whatever. But you lose points for killing anybody but your target.
Oh boy, discouragement. That sounds great.
But I think Hitman, yeah, part of the points is just killing your target and avoiding collateral damage. Not that you can't do collateral damage, but that avoiding it. That's one way to do it.
See,
Penalized.
on
This is a
some
mechanic
Saturday,
in,
I'm going to just kill everyone I'm not supposed to kill.
Again, you can always play a game in ways not designed, but you're being encouraged to play it one way, even though you
And
have the choice to play it
discouraged to
another
play
way.
another
Always ride a bike.
You can always ride
Yeah.
a bike.
But that's the other thing. In Grand Theft Auto, there's nothing saying that you have to kill the hookers. The name of the game is Grand Theft Auto, not Homicide.
But you do get points for killing people.
Yeah, now you could change the points, or just eliminate the points.
There's really nothing better after a day of coming home from traffic.
You just crash a bunch of cars.
Yeah, just drive down and run over everybody and go crazy.
So I want to talk about a game that is interactive in a different way. It's one of my favorite things ever. It's by 6 to start. It is an exercise app called Zombies Run.
I was hoping you would bring that up.
There is also another called The Walk, and I will get into that later. Zombies Run is a game in which you, the player, are the main character. It is designed to get you moving. You can run, walk, jog. I walk my dogs to it. And it's a radio play in which you're the main character.
Yep.
6 months after the zombie apocalypse, you are helicoptered into this little town, this little enclave of people, of survivors, you know, in the wilderness, basically, that was once the UK. And your job as a runner is to leave the safe, protected base of operations where there are survivors and people, go out into the zombie-infested woods and towns and cities, get supplies, and bring them back without becoming bitten yourself. You can turn on zombie chases, where you have to move faster. The app will know how fast you're going. You can do GPS or, like, On a treadmill, it'll do the accelerometer that's built into your phone. But if you do not go a certain percentage faster, you will start dropping supplies that you have picked up throughout your exercise period. And one of the nice things about it is it's by people who like exercising and who like stories. And one of the things that you don't want to be doing while you're trying to exercise is juggle your phone to pick up stuff. So you pick up supplies, it's completely hands-free. When you're on a mission, and they're called missions, you don't have to touch your phone. You just go, or, you know, stop if you're at a light. It advises you to be responsible if you're going anywhere where there is traffic. And as you go along, it plays your music, and then it plays a story clip. So you get segments of the radio episode story that you're on. And people talk to you because you are runner 5. And the story starts out small, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you're basically, you know, helping save the world. Multiple times. It's on season 4.
But I will mention there, that's a story on rails. I don't imagine you actually have much of that.
Yes.
But you feel like you do.
Yeah, but she's still interacting with it. I mean, if she doesn't run, she's going to drop all the supplies and not win the level.
Somebody still says good job at the end.
Mission completed. And at the end, when you have finished the mission or, you know, have stopped for the day, you say return to base. And you actually have a little Able township that you know, put supplies in, level up buildings and stuff, so you get to see and make a growing town of people. And it's pretty cool.
And then there's Zombie Highway, just in case you do want to play a zombie running in traffic.
Oh.
No, it's a
an
game.
interactive
You're driving,
story?
you're driving down the highway and you're running over zombies.
Oh.
So if you don't run fast enough, or you don't collect enough supply on your missions,
You can't level buildings up.
So yeah, does that affect the game environment? Are you interacting with the game environment, and does that lead to either a different ending, or does it lead to a different sort of scenario as it goes?
The supplies, I don't think, but here's the thing. I've been doing it consistently enough that if there are things I'm not unlocking, well, it's very unlikely I'm not unlocking everything as I go because I'm far along in it.
Yeah.
But you can't build if you don't have supplies. So you can't level up the base. You cannot defend against zombie attacks, which do happen on your base. And there are side missions in Season 2 that allow you to get things that you couldn't otherwise get to put in your base. You can also turn zombie chases on and off, I should say. I don't have them on because when I'm walking the dogs and they're, you know, going to the bathroom, I don't want to suddenly need to be in a zombie chase and have to go really fast. Like, that's not going to happen.
That's what I was thinking when you said you were doing it while walking the dog.
Yeah, but see, one of the things that they've also started doing is there are things you can do to change the story at the beginning. So one episode, you have to escape from a flotilla of boats, of ships. And you can go in a lifeboat, you can go in one of those rubber blow-up boats, or you can go in a submarine. I took the submarine. The story was definitely different than if I had taken a lifeboat. We had to barrel roll that thing to live. So, and there were zombies like along the bottom. It's great with description. You really feel like you're a character in the story. You have a type. People rely on you. And I love the game for that. It's very well written, great storytelling, great acting. I wish more games were like it.
And I venture that those elements, the elements of being able to make decisions at the beginning that affect the story, and the ability to, I'm not going to say succeed or fail, because the plot will resolve regardless, but the way it resolves is variable depending on how often you use the app and how well you use the app. So that takes it from being a narrative that prompts you to run into an interactive storytelling experience.
I think the speed at which you go also affects the kind of things you pick up.
This essentially is a resource management RPG, which have been around for umpteen decades now.
Dwarf Fortress, anyone?
Yeah, I mean,
I've never heard that term.
The resource management RPG?
Yeah.
Yeah, any of the RPGs that are less focused on character dialogue and more focused on the bases you build up and the vehicles you buy and the units you buy and everything you do. There are
StarCraft.
Yeah, I mean StarCraft is probably the biggest of them. But there are tons, and there are tons for your phone now too. Even
Well, there's an element of that in it.
yeah,
But the storytelling element is the driving feature of the game, and that's why so many people have it.
well, I know Dave plays one, and I've played it too. The Star Wars Commander. It is essentially a resource management game that has the Star Wars juice hosed all over it. And, it's fun because the story that you're telling is a story you know really well, which is, we're on Tatooine and we got to build up a base now or something like that so that we can repel the Imperials when they arrive.
Or you can play the Empire and do the same.
Or you can repel the Rebels. But, so the story you're telling is but the way that it's interactive, and less so than the Zombie Run, because in Zombie Run you actually are getting out and being physical, which is the awesomeness of that game.
Yeah.
Resource management, you're just sitting at your computer and you're going, I'll take that, unit. I want that building.
And before I turn this over to Kathleen, I will...
It's still interactive.
I will confess, I was playing this while you guys were talking. Go ahead.
Fair enough.
I wish more people would be like Six to Start, the game developers. They've created another app called The Walk that I said I was going to get back to. And that one is not... It doesn't have the base builder aspect of Zombies Run, but it does have the story. And you unlock the story as you walk. And it's like a pedometer app, basically. But like you can click on things as you go along. So that one's more hands-on while you're doing it.
So does that mean Fitbit's now an interactive storytelling unit?
I wish more
Might be a way
things
to
would do
improve
that.
It's just
I
my
wish.
life instead of some other story.
Like, because I would love to go through, like, I'm on my feet a lot of the day now. I would love to go to work and then get back to my car and have, like, an entire episode of story unlocked that I didn't have before. And that's kind of what it does.
Question, because I don't know that much about this game, and I'm going to butcher the name because I'm trying to think of a name raw off the top of my head.
Invictus?
No, that's a movie.
Invigorating?
That's a movie.
No, it's basically a capture the flag type game that's being played around the world in real life and on your phones or whatever, where you belong to two sides. It's like a spy game, but you go and you basically are going to a location, and the most people who are there, that side wins. That captured the game.
I do not know this game.
I've seen it talked about on news and so forth. But anyway, I was just curious if that's where we're going now, is video games into real life.
I think that's Six to Start's aim when they do these games. It's a game you can take into the real world, and I love game designers who can create these gamify your life things to make it better.
Well, I mean, now we have like... I just had it over my head and I can't
Look up this name while I'm thinking of it. Go ahead.
But, we do have these games now where the game that you play is kind of involved in your life, or, it's going on separate from when you leave it, it's still happening.
Oh, yeah.
We have a lot of these games, and I think the future of entertainment is going to go this way. Real quick, though, just as another interactive storytelling thing, I'm going to throw out LARPing, which is live-action role-playing. Which is in essence getting rid of the whole video game aspect and the whole tabletop gaming and just taking it outside and being.
It's a truly interactive story
make-believe.
because everyone is just
It is
playing
It's
together.
adult make-believe.
It takes us back to
make-believe.
little kids playing with their toys.
Exactly.
RPGs, like role-playing games and LARPing, which is a type of role-playing game, basically give you rule systems for make-believe. That's all they do. And I love them.
Well, this is like going off of interactive storytelling in general. I mean, I like things in an age like ours where we have so many mediums for telling stories through. I like things that match the strengths of their medium the best. I like movies that have no dialogue in them. I like plays that are entirely dialogue, And one of the things that games are good at is, like the Mass Effect thing, making choices and changing the outcome. Another thing they're good at, though, and that we're mentioning now, is immersion. Getting you into it. Let's see.
VR. I can't wait.
That's going to be
You're
going
to be the one who gets the Oculus Rift.
No. Though I do love the commercial where the guy with the Oculus
The
Rift
helmet.
totally goes for the pizza, drops his gun and goes for the pizza. Awesome commercial.
VR virtual reality.
Yes.
All right.
Vroom.
Vroom.
VR room.
There's a lot of great examples of this kind of immersion thing going on. The one I wanted to bring up that I played recently, might be a good tie-in for recent events, is a game called Bloodborne.
Bloodborne.
Which is a... well, it's kind of like a Victorian horror thing. You play a hunter, and there's a town that's full of werewolves, basically, and you have to hunt them all down. It's there's a couple different endings, but it's like... It's not a thing where you affect the story much, you know, you kind of go through, you fight the bosses, you keep going.
You have different endings, though.
Yeah, you do have different endings.
So you do affect the story, even if it is in a small way.
You don't affect the story up until you get to that ending choice.
It's a variable ending like in Deus Ex, where you pick which ending you want at the end by pressing buttons.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's affected, I think, by the experience of it, which is, it's like a Half-Life thing, where you don't leave your own perspective, nobody explains much of anything to you. Like, you get some exposition at the beginning, and then you're just left to make your own choices and find your own way. And you experience the story by yourself, just watching it. And there's a big change about halfway through as to, like, what the menace you're fighting is. And nobody says, like, oh, this went a lot deeper than we thought. Like, you just see it changing, and you kind of go... Like, you see a couple of things early on, you kind of go, huh, that's weird. And then you keep going, and you see, oh, it's really weird. Oh my god, what is this? And nobody tells you that. You just experience it. And that's something that video games are really great at. Is they can just show you things, and while you're interacting with them, you understand them. That immersion is
the
strength.
immersion factor of video games is only going to grow. I think that's the next step, and no maif how you do it, if we're on bigger TVs and we're seeing it in gloriousness or something like that,
Or in the helmet.
or in a helmet or whatever, I don't know how it's going to go.
I'm
but
waiting for my 3D
eventually,
glasses.
we will get the holodeck.
Yeah.
And that will be awesome, because that is a fully immersive room that you'll be able to interact with amazingly.
But will we all become, what's it?
Barkley.
Broccoli.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Barkley.
Poor Barkley.
Broccoli?
That was
Poor
his
Broccoli.
Yeah.
The thing with games, though, is that because we can use them to do so many things, and because we've kind of, advertising and game companies have kind of mastered the art of creating addiction in people, I have been addicted to games that made me feel very annoyed at where my time had gone. And something that a good game will do for me is it will give me a story that will make me feel like I spent my time well. And that's what I look for in games primarily. Like, I don't want a time waster. Games that I'm going to remember and love and recommend are going to have a story to go with them that makes it worth everything.
And just to end this, I'm going to say...
Before you end off, are you ending off for
No,
good?
I can turn this back right over to you.
I just wanted to finally plug my thing.
Okay.
What
The
have we
St.
got
Louis, it's the IGDA, the Interactive Game Development. I just wanted to plug them because they were where I learned Twine from.
Okay.
IGDASTL.org. Check it out. All right, go on.
No, I was going to say, Kathleen, what you said about the time waster. That's the reason I don't play that many games, because I could either play the game or I could write. And my goal is to write. It's not to play games. But the game I was looking for earlier that I finally found, and it's called Ingress. Nope, I gotta look for this. Well, before I saw this was on...
Sounds a little too nerdy for me, honestly.
It's a social... Let me just go
Ooh.
I'll just tell you a little bit about it. Ingress transforms the real world into a landscape for a global game of mystery, intrigue, and competition. Our future is at stake. You must choose a side. A mysterious energy has been unearthed by a team of scientists in Europe. Dang Europeans. The origin and purpose of the force is unknown, but some researchers believe it is influencing the way we think. We must control it, or it controls us. So there's two teams.
Oh,
The
it's literally
enlightened-
true.
The enlightened seek to embrace the power that the energy may bestow, and the resistance struggle to defend and protect what's left of humanity. And with this game, from what I've read, I have not played it, and I'm afraid to play it because I'm afraid of the time suck that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Is literally little points wherever you're at in your city will be this power, and you get as many people as you can on your team to go out there, and it's basically like capture the flag. But anyway, with that, We've kind of really gone all over the place about storytelling in games.
We've been in the sandbox of games.
Do we have a wrap up? There's too many varying choices.
There's just too many varying choices.
We need a definite ending.
The ending is that
your
interactive storytelling is an evolving medium.
Yes.
That we're learning new and different ways to do it. That sometimes interactivity is a detriment to storytelling, in such a way that like you're enjoying the story and then you have to stop and pick a lock or something and you're annoyed, or you have to press A to continue. Press A to pay respects.
And then
Wasn't it called?
I'm going to go a
That
little
was Call of Duty.
sideways. I'm going to go a little sideways with that. I agree with what Jen said. But from a plotting point of view, I sometimes get tired with my novel plotting it. Or writing it because I already know what's going to happen. Creating, like using Twine, this is what I'm hoping will occur as I'm designing it, is a way that I've got all these possible stories out there. They're plotted. Which way is the story going to go? I can remain surprised as I go.
Actually, if you were to plot all those out, though, is there any value to not just putting that out as your story?
Depends on
If I
how
want to write
detailed.
Choose Your Own Adventure. Okay. And on that note, we're going to end this here and have a great week writing, and we'll tune in next week for yet another interesting exploration in the writing industry. The new theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her. Right Pack Radio would like to thank STL Books for allowing us to record in their office. STL Books is a online bookstore specializing in new and used high-quality literature, children's books, and books written by or about St. Louis. Please visit them online at www.stlbooks.com or find their store on the Amazon.com website.